Florida's Women in Energy Leadership Forum was launched to inform, inspire, motivate diverse talent to join the energy workforce by intentional recognition of current female energy leaders who contribute to growing Florida's economy and the purposeful sharing of their professional journeys. We are creating opportunity. Join me each week as we meet new leaders in energy and listen to their important roles in an industry that is vital to the country's future. Welcome. So to our viewers, apologies in advance. Like everyone dealing with our virtual world, we had just a bit of technical delay there. Welcome to this podcast and live Facebook interview with Amy Magnan and Jeff Johnson. I'm excited to have the two of them with us today on the Florida's Women in Energy Leadership Forum Network. So Jeff is the Executive Director, President of AARP Florida. Excited that Jeff can be with us today. And then Amy Magnan is the Director of Stakeholder Engagement for Duke Energy. And you might be wondering, why are the two of them together on this show? Well, we look forward to explaining. And so, Jeff, let's start with you. Talk about your role with AARP. And of course, in doing that, you're going to tell us about your organization, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah. So thank you, Lila. I just appreciate any opportunity to spend time with you and with Amy. So thanks for the invitation to do this today. A lot of folks know who AARP is or think they do. It's the organization that starts sending you mail at 49 years and about 9 months and doesn't quit until you send us $16. But we're a little bit more than that. AARP is a national organization that represents people 50 and over and their families. And as the Florida State Director, I am not responsible for hectoring you to join the organization. I do that just for fun. My job is really around providing advocacy and engagement opportunities for AARP members in the state of Florida. So on the advocacy front, we're active, of course, on national issues before Congress, certainly very active in Tallahassee around state advocacy, and then in local advocacy to a growing degree. Meanwhile, on the engagement side, there are a lot of life transitions that happen for people who are 50 and over. And generally, unlike the ones for earlier in life, we don't have as much of a script of how to do that. And so we offer opportunities for AARP members and others to learn from each other and from experts about how to navigate those life transitions.
Thank you, Jeff. Welcome again. So Amy, I already heard the E word in common, right? Engagement. And then there's advocacy. You've got a big, tremendous job at Duke Energy. Want to tell us all about it?
I'd love to. And Jeff, although I still feel young, I am a proud member of AARP. And actually
50 gets earlier and earlier, right?
With my $16 annual dues. And Lila, thank you for this opportunity. I do want to thank you for all you do to champion women and innovation and also great leaders like Jeff. It matters, and your work is very evident across the state. So I do work for Duke Energy, and my area of emphasis is with stakeholder engagement in Florida. And I get to work with partners like Jeff and AARP Florida to better understand their membership, what their mission is, and then also find ways of collaboration and find points of interest that when we need to, we can share with one another that speaks to our respective business goals. And I work with a great team, a great state president who you both know, Catherine Stempian, and she champions customers and innovation every single day, makes it easy for me to do my work. And I also, part of that work involves overseeing the foundation. And Lila, I know that you're going to be interviewing the foundation manager, Pavita Prasad Samuel, who does a fantastic job in identifying ways that we can partner with our communities.
I look forward to that. You're absolutely right. She's on, I think, early 2021, if I'm not mistaken. We look forward to it. But Duke Energy has been a champion in terms of stakeholder engagement for years. And I'm glad you gave a shout out to your Florida president, Catherine Stempian, we both, all three of us actually, heard her speak recently at the Florida's Women in Energy Leadership Forum that you both sponsor, both organizations sponsor. Thank you for that. And a lot of what she discussed is what we're going to be talking about, Jeff, the areas where we can all partner with the community to serve our mutual customer, if you will, right? The mutual client, that customer, in the case of AARP, the seniors of us. And it's interesting, when you said $16 a year, my mind immediately went to, it's not a lot of money for the big job that you have in terms of member services. So is that one of the reasons that you find these strategic alliances where you can reach more people with less, if you will, right? So,
Sure.
how does a partnership with Duke help you in that regard?
No, that's a great question, Lila. I think I would say it's true that our membership dues are pretty affordable. We have 2.9 million members, give or take, in the state of Florida. So that's a lot of folks to try to represent. But I would say it's less about that resource limitation than it is about the fact that I think we're always stronger together. Mm-hmm. So we are small staff. I mean, we have 23 staff members spread across the state to do our work. And so we thrive to the extent that we do by building strong relationships with volunteers. We have, a force of thousands of volunteers who provide real service in communities, but then also having strategic partners. And I think that we are able to better communicate with our members about what's going on, as well as to the general public, when we're not standing alone. And within the advocacy world, we're often the representative of the consumer in especially the utilities regulatory process. And I know that sometimes will put us on opposite sides with power companies and with others. I think it's really important for us to communicate that while that may be the case on an issue, it is not the case that we are mortal enemies, because it seems like we live in a world in which the only opponents are people who are at each other's throats all the time. We welcome the opportunities to partner with Duke, and Amy and the team, Catherine, have been fantastic to work with. And I don't say that to slight any of the other folks who could be in this conversation. But we do it more than anything because it's just a more powerful message when it's not just one organization standing up.
That's right. So, Amy, we have a first question from an audience member, and it is, what are examples of services you provide to seniors in particular? I'm sure they mean benefits.
Yeah, I think particularly in this year, unfortunately, this summer, we saw really the highest reported scam efforts targeting our seniors. And as a result of working with partners like Jeff and AARP to communicate to our senior customers that we have resources to prevent that. And we also have resources if seniors have been victims of reported scams that can involve bill paying, energy reporting, and that's all available on our website with a toolkit and other resources to help them. Also, we know that our seniors were very vulnerable during the pandemic. So again, thanks to Jeff and other organizations to get the word out, we have worked extensively and tirelessly to help our customers, particularly the seniors, find opportunities for bill paying assistance. Mm-hmm. We've partnered with state and community organizations, 211 organizations for those seniors who don't have opportunities to be in close proximity to some of those other organizations for bill paying assistance. And our foundation has given over $1 million to assist in that effort. And I'm always proud to work for Duke Energy, but our employees really stepped up personally too and made investments in the Energy Neighbor Fund that is matched dollar for dollar up to $500,000 for bill paying assistance. And we were also challenged by our awesome state president, Catherine Stempian, to serve on the front lines on the call center to help walk through customers, particularly seniors, and navigating how to manage bill paying during this time. And we took, financial hardship training and really understood what those resources could be that were relevant to that particular customer. We do this anyway, but we really, our employees stepped up to help customers like seniors. And those are just a few examples. Lila, we also help with energy efficiency resources that can help not only seniors, but all customers with energy efficiency evaluations online, by phone. And hopefully, once we can get on the other side of this pandemic, we'll return back to in-home energy efficiencies to help our customers paying their bills and to conserve energy.
So Jeff, all of that matters, of course, right? But it only matters if you can communicate it to your membership. So is that another area where you're able to partner with companies like Duke to get the message out?
Yeah, absolutely. So the opportunities that we have to talk with our members through publications that AARP puts out, through social media, through emails, all those sorts of things, are opportunities to also showcase areas where people can get help from local companies, from local partners. And Duke is a really good example of that. The fraud element that Amy started with, AARP has a national fraud watch network that does wonderful work in helping people stay up to date on the latest frauds and scams. But you still need to know what your local power company has to say about this. And Duke is going to know before somebody in DC that this is active here. So the opportunity for us to connect and get the word out about what Duke is doing, again, is a service to our members that we're happy to do. And when there's opportunities to work in reverse, we love that too.
Yeah. Another area of your membership impact, Jeff, relates to the storms that thankfully we're out of hurricane season, they say, right? And middle of November was
so
the end
they
of,
say.
So they say. We do have another few weeks of 2020. I just, scary, right? But hopefully they are correct and we're out of hurricane season. But that's another place where we've seen impact to seniors negatively. I'm thinking about Hurricane Michael in particular, Jeff, and the areas of the Panhandle where Duke was providing services. I mentioned this to Amy a couple of weeks ago. One of the most powerful images I've seen of Catherine Stempien is when she was in that Mexico Beach Panhandle area after Hurricane Michael, working, boots on the ground. And that's another area I think that lends itself as an opportunity for the two organizations to work together. What do you do in those kinds of situations?
No, you're absolutely right. I think as much as anything, that may be the first opportunity that I think Amy and I saw together. We do volunteer work, as I mentioned earlier, in support of helping people prepare for storms, as well as a lot of messaging around what especially those who are older should be thinking about. And when Amy's team and our local team at Tampa Bay got together for the first time to just kind of listen to each other's priorities, it came very quickly to the top of the list as something that we could do together. And so thanks to Duke Energy, we have worked with local senior service providers to develop storm preparation kits, storm season prep kits, and then distribute them out into the community as a volunteer project. But kind of besides that, and I'll go, while Michael is certainly maybe the most devastating of the recent storms, I think back a year earlier when Irma got almost everybody in the state, and we would see things pop up here and there across the state. And I know one of the things you hear every hurricane season is a middle of a disaster is a bad time to be exchanging business cards. Right. And I think the fact that we had a relationship allowed me to call Amy, a couple of points along the way and say, hey, here's what we're seeing in what we think is Duke territory. Do you want to just help check it out? And we're not a direct responder. We're not, the Red Cross, but because we're AARP, people will reach out and say, hey, I'm an AARP member, or, my mom is in this community that doesn't seem to be having power. And so having somebody that I knew at Duke just as at FPL and TICO and others, who could accelerate the process of providing solutions for people in the midst of a crisis, I think was a real help.
It's a great point, Jeff. Great point. Amy, we always say the first time you need someone ought not be the first time you've met, right? So we haven't talked about how the three of us really know each other, but Jeff is on to something. Those friendships, relationships allow for the engagement to occur easily, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we talk about stakeholder engagement, and to me, that's really listening and learning and growing together. And when I started in this role, leaders like you, whom I greatly respect, suggested I get to know Jeff. And Jeff, I think we had coffee outside in St. Pete. And then we had a broader sharing session that Jeff just alluded to with both our teams, which coincidentally occurred right after Hurricane Irma.
Wow.
So storms were on everybody's mind. And, I think a key component of listening is not always going in with a prescribed agenda. We weren't thinking storm kit partnership that's now in year 2, 3. But I heard his team talk about, immediate needs of his members. And it was great for Jeff to pick up the phone during the storm, after the storm, and provide us with information that we may or may not have immediately had, but our awesome team was able to respond in an appropriate and timely manner. So the Storm Kit project, it's grown. Matter of fact, Lila, it's in its second year, and we've expanded it across the state to not only distribute the kits, but the first year it was wonderful. Both our teams assembled them together, and that shared experience for the kits, which are a waterproof bag, and it has storm information now for our seniors in larger font in both Spanish and English.
And it is so appreciated.
I can read it. As well as other, first aid kits, flashlights, warming blankets, things that really I credit Jeff's team had identified. These things were missing. These things are important for our customers, our members. And so we continue to do that. And something else that I really appreciated the collaboration with Jeff this year is we have a fantastic enterprise-wide, statewide volunteer program. And a lot of that assembly of those storm kits were our Duke Energy volunteers, and same with AARP. Well, to ensure that our employees are safe, we moved to, as everyone did, to the world of virtual volunteering. What does that look like? And so I reached out to Jeff and said, what type of virtual volunteering opportunities do you have? And he shared with me Friendly Caller and other regional opportunities through AARP. And our employees again stepped up and participated in virtual volunteering. And those are just some examples. Matter of fact, this month we're doing the Operation We Care, sending digital holiday cards to veterans. And Pavita is coordinating that for Florida. I did mine, but she was telling me earlier this week that there's an employee who had her daughter draw some pictures, and she scanned it to send to veterans, many of whom are AARP members. And so I think that I really appreciated getting to know Jeff. He's inspired me to think in new and creative ways, how we can help one another in the collective sense in this state.
So Jeff and Amy, I think we have to give a shout out to the organization that brought us all together. I think this is a But for Leadership Florida friendship, right? And I think that's how initially the three of us met. And I know the vehicle that's allowed you to keep fostering your friendship and now working relationship.
Absolutely.
It's just a tremendous organization that now we have in common. So Jeff, I have to believe that this leadership that you and Amy have demonstrated with regard to the partnership is not unique to your organization from a national perspective, but clearly Florida is the best, I'm sure, right, Jeff?
Sure. Yes. There are people who are competitive and people who are not. And while I strive not to be, yeah, it is. Of course it is. And I think, I think that there are a million different approaches to leadership. And the one that I've tried to focus on is trying to connect ideas and people to make a difference. And the best way to do that is to listen first. And I think that Duke, under Catherine and Amy's leadership especially, have been exceptional in listening and in wanting to understand and work for the good of the other. That's what we try to do too. And I think that there are probably places where the constellation of, AARP advocates and power companies may not be in a position where that's the approach that they care to take with each other. And I respect that. But that's how we're going to do things here in Florida. And so it's been a real gift to have such a willing and able partner in Amy in this work. And I think to your shout out earlier, Lila, it's a good reflection of what Leadership Florida helps make happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We have an audience question. Amy, this is to you. What are some of the initiatives in renewable energy that Duke has embraced?
Many. So, core mission is to provide safe and reliable energy to our customers, but in doing that, to protect our environment. And there are so many examples, but what immediately comes to mind with renewables is that before 2022 ends, we will have added 700 megawatts of additional solar on our system. And really a credit to our renewables team, and again to Catherine for championing that. We do have in front of the Public Service Commission a filing for the Clean Energy Connection Program. And Lila, that will be 750 additional megawatts of service in a subscription type project that all customers, residential who qualify, business, government can participate in. And they'll see a payback as well as cost savings and helping the environment. But I also look at our employees, again, I always go back to that, and they live it. I think of, if you haven't visited our Crystal River Mariculture Center, I highly encourage you to. Jeff, I know you're familiar with that. We have a leader in Eric Latimer who just continues to be creative in the ways that he manages our marine hatchery. I think that may be one of our best kept secrets, that a lot of people aren't aware that we actually have a marine hatchery. And through Eric's leadership, we've released, over 4 million fish back into the Gulf of Mexico waters. That's just one example of what we're trying to do for sustainability. And of course, our solar projects we're very excited about. This month, we're rolling out EV charging stations across the state. Our smart meter program will really help our customers, in identifying, their high energy alerts when they can pay their bills, all in trying to make sure that, Jeff, you mentioned that, you want to make sure you're a reflection of your members and their needs. And that is the question that we ask every day. Are we doing that? And clean energy is definitely a priority of our customers and of our employees. And also, Lila, when we're siting a facility or a generation site, power lines, substations, it's all to make sure that we're protecting the environment while doing so. And so I'm really excited about going into 2021 and looking at what all the opportunities are for solar. If that clean energy connection filing is approved, that will be 10 additional solar sites to what we've already done with the original 700 megawatts of solar, and that's making a big impact. And that includes battery storage facilities as well.
And Jeff, just to follow up on that question, we know generally that Florida consumers are expecting these companies to invest more and more in renewable energy. Is that the level of education process, communication you undertake with your membership? Do you issue newsletters? Do you do surveys? How is it you communicate their level of interest in these matters.
Sure, all of it. Well, thank you,
Yeah.
Lila. All of those things. I mean, we are in constant conversation with our members, and AARP members tend to be more than willing to share their opinions. We do this through active surveys that we conduct. We do this through monitoring of calls into us, to our national call center, through our social media channels, through in the before times, in-person meetings, to try to get a sense of what's on people's minds. And when it comes to energy, affordability obviously is always at the top of the list. I think a lot of folks may have an incomplete conception of older Floridians as folks who are comfortably retired and living, on a beach or a golf course somewhere. While there's certainly a significant part of our population that fit that category, there are a lot of folks who are barely getting by, and for whom Social Security is the one thing that keeps them out of poverty. And for them, affordability is absolutely critical. At the same time, we are more than cognizant of the fact that our members want Florida to be a great place, not just for themselves, but for their children and grandchildren and generations to come. And so they recognize that there's a need to commit to safer ways of sustaining Florida's future and Florida's environment. And I think they look to us and frankly, more broadly, to the regulatory process to ensure that that balance is there, that as we make those changes, that it's done with a recognition that every investment we make in clean energy is fantastic for the long haul, and also has an impact on those short-term pocketbooks of consumers.
Yeah. And Amy, it seems to me, with that as a very good foundation, Jeff, those are excellent points, that it does create an opportunity for you to really hone down that message, hone down the message so that these points can be fully appreciated, right, by all consumers, not just customers. And therein lies that continued collaboration with the opportunity to continue to collaborate with AARP membership and all organizations,
Yeah, definitely. I think collaboration and customer engagement is meeting where they want to be and how we can get there for them. And increasingly in this world, and particularly in the energy sector, we're seeing that desire for that customization of energy preference. And that's why I'm excited about these initiatives that Duke Energy is already doing, but will continue to do, moving forward.
Good. Well, let's get a little personal. You ready for this? This is the part of our show where we get to know you personally. So, Jeff, what took you to AARP other than we turned a certain age?
Yeah, and it's funny, when we were talking about this beforehand, I think you talked about these kind of origin stories are a great way to inspire. I don't know that mine's very inspirational. It might be amusing, though. So I worked in sports marketing. I was selling tickets for the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, and we had a group night at the ballpark for AARP members. And I got to know the AARP staff, which was much smaller then. This was 99, I guess it was, 2000 maybe. And one of the contacts there followed up with me maybe 6 months later and said, "Hey, we're hiring an event manager and volunteer manager. It's AARP, so it's a more normal job than working in sports. It's a bunch of old people, so we don't work at nights and we don't work on the weekends." But none of that was true, by the way. But I was at a point in my life when I was ready for kind of a grown-up job, and I thought I would come to AARP, learn about the phenomenal advocacy that I'd always heard of, and then go do something else. And that was 20 years ago. I've stuck around and over time moved up through the ranks, as it were, and have been state director for 10 years as state director. And what I have found, the reason why I've stayed is, the cause is fantastic. We're all going to get there, God willing. And so making life one that is easy to thrive at any age is critically important. And it's a broad set of issues that goes into that, of which utilities is a piece, but frankly, a relatively small one. Two, we have a phenomenal team of staff and volunteers. And whenever we turn around, we're meeting somebody new who brings such gifts and such experience and such energy and enthusiasm to the work that it's hard not to stay involved. And then three, I mean, Florida is the most fascinating state that you could ever want to be in. I grew up in Jacksonville and couldn't wait to get back to, I needed to be near water. When you grew up in Jacksonville, it's St. John's River. You're in the Tampa Bay area, you've got the Bay and the Gulf. But it's not really about the water. It's really about just the phenomenally just fascinating mix of cultures and histories that we have in Florida, and the spirit of continued reinvention. And I think that when AARP was founded back in 1958, we had a place in St. Petersburg. It was a welcome center for people who were, vacationing from up north, probably. And we've always had a space here where we've invented new things and tried new things. And I would argue that Florida as a culture is a place where people are always trying new things. And I think that benefits all of us.
So well said. So Jeff, when I served on the PSC, I think your predecessor at the time was Ed Pascal, and I learned so much from him. He was a gem, absolute gem. I would pick up the phone and just ask him questions, and always generous with his time. And it was then that I had a better appreciation for decisions impact people differently, depending on their perspective at any point in time. And like you, he was effective, very effective. And like you, he understood and appreciated the power of these kinds of collaborations, and was a Floridian through and through.
For sure. And if I could say a quick word about Ed, because he is emblematic of what AARP is at its best. Ed was a guy who flew planes for the state of Florida. And when he retired, he got interested in utilities. He was an AARP volunteer for decades and was our representative in the PSC as well as in legislatures, and really just had the experience of just a person who had lived life and who had devoted a new passion to a topic that he knew was important to people. And those are my favorite people, frankly, the ones who they weren't, lobbyists who, no offense to anybody here, who decide they want to volunteer on the side, or they weren't, journalists necessarily. They're people who came from, they sold luggage at JCPenney. They were air traffic controllers. They came from some other place, came to AARP, and in collaboration with us, developed their own presence. And Ed is a good example of a trend that I see over and over again, which inspires me, which is people that I meet who know one of our volunteer leaders, who then say, I didn't realize that was a volunteer. We're doing it right when we have folks like that on our side.
Absolutely. So Amy, Amy is a national known author. She writes for the Ocala Banner and has at least two full-time jobs with Duke Energy, because we've not talked about your federal work yet, Amy. So where do you want to start? You make me tired. You make me pick one. Start.
I was listening to Jeff's path to AARP and laughing, because that's similar to mine in the energy sector. I was a journalism undergrad and a history graduate student, which is the obvious track for energy sector, right? But I hope that inspires those who think about the career path in energy. And it's not just the traditional engineering or operational side, but I'd like to think, as I was listening to Jeff, that our experiences really helped us in what we're doing today. I started actually as a community relations manager for Progress Energy. And I think that role of a community relations manager is probably one of the most important, because you're dealing with a diverse group of communities and needs, and also business units internally. So that really paved the way for me to always try to think about how we communicate, how we listen, how we work with one another. And I hope that the history background gives me some perspective on how to address issues that might seem unique, but in the grand scheme of things have probably occurred at some other point in time.
Amy, one of the members of the audience wants to know the name of your book and what inspired you. Oh, there you go. And what inspired you? That's great. And what inspired you to write the book? This Side Up, The Road to a Renovated Life. And I'm assuming that our producer put the picture up because your book is available on Amazon.
So Lila, I'll pay you later. Be my agent. Yeah, that's a memoir, and it is about my family went through some difficult times with my children and some health scares, and some other things which were residual impacts of the recession. Again, some things happen in cycles, right? We're looking at unprecedented issues now with the pandemic, but the book is really a celebration of love and community and resiliency. We've all gone through difficult times, and that my intent in writing it was, one, I'm so proud of my family. I wanted to write this as a legacy and a tribute to them, but also to help others find strength in the paths that they have to follow, whether or not they want to. And I do think about Lila. When we were going through some pretty dark days, I was so fortunate to work for a company and a group of colleagues who were just always there and very, very supportive. And that matters a lot. So it was a really great experience. Jeff and I both share a passion for writing. Jeff is an exceptional writer.
He is.
I can't wait to read his book. I keep telling him to write one.
Mm-hmm.
He has very inspirational posts on his social media. And that's really the power of words, how they can connect in really unexpected, beautiful ways.
So true. So I have a little bit of a head start on you, Jeff. I would encourage you to read Amy's book, as I did now almost 2 years ago. Amy knows this. You and I haven't spoken about it, but it was at a time when, I'll tell you, her book, I found her book, right place, right time, right week, and finished it in a day and a half. It is, it's so inspirational. And Amy, you are such a humble servant leader. You really are. So not only is Jeff a great writer, but he's also a proponent of civic engagement. So another commonality for both of you, just really the power of words, but the power of encouraging people to be involved. Right, Jeff? It's a very powerful message, I think, to know what's happening around you and to be engaged.
Thank you. I think that that really a part of thriving in life is human connection and purpose. And we do that together. We do that in community. And Amy talked to her about the community at Duke, and certainly has lived out community in any number of ways, as I know you have too, Lila. It is something that we have to pay attention to, though. I think that in the world that we have today, it's become much easier for people to not participate. And there's, scads of research that shows the level of civic engagement and its decline over time. Florida Civic Advance is an effort, Lila, I know you're familiar with. Amy, I'm pretty sure I've talked with you about it too, that strives to try to identify what the opportunities to reverse that decline of civic engagement in Florida are. There are a lot of factors for why the rates for civic engagement in Florida are lower than in other states. At the end of the day, though, we just need to figure out how we re-knit together communities and neighbors. I think that's something that actually that Duke and that the energy industry as a whole have a unique opportunity to do, because virtually every neighborhood in Florida is relying on you all for power every day, and sees you as a leader in the community because of the good work that you do at the local level. But it's something that I think all organizations ought to pay attention to. And of course, again, we were founded by a volunteer. We were led by volunteers. Of course, I have my own agenda in making sure that we continue to encourage volunteering among people of all ages in Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. So we always have students that listen in on the show and on the podcast. And so with the last few minutes we have, I want to leave you with this question, if you don't mind. Answer this for the students. If you were a second-year college student today and you are interested in joining the energy industry, what advice would you give him or her? Amy, you want to take that on first?
Sure. I would say don't put yourself in a corner. Look at what Jeff and I were just talking about, and Lila, your opportunities to create and reinvent along the way. You know, I think certainly I would be an advocate for the energy industry. There's so many opportunities, and find a mentor, create that opportunity, call them up. We're available. You know, somebody helped us, right? And this is how we continue to pay that forward. I read a book last year, and I may butcher the title, but it's basically to be so good that they can't ignore you.
Mhm.
And I now give that to my friends who have children who are graduating from high school, and continuously do the work, do the homework, volunteer. You know, you'll have some mistakes along the way, but it will really be how consistent that you are, that you show up and you listen and you learn and you work really, intentionally. That would be the advice I would say, is to make those opportunities, create them for yourselves.
Absolutely. You know, I have had the blessing of working with many industries, not just the PSC regulated industries or even my work with the PSC. Just in comparison, I have found the energy industry overall to be very accessible to students, and really the mentoring and the championing. It's, if you email an executive, you will get an email back. It's really very interesting, and I've watched it in support of the students that we sponsor for Florida's Women in Energy Leadership Forum. Very engaged, and really kudos to companies like yours, Amy, and for what you personally do for these students. It takes time. It's really very generous on everyone's part because it takes time.
I'm always so impressed at the forums when the students are asking really thoughtful questions that are really on par with, the inquiry by those of us who are in the sector. They care, and that's a fantastic program, Lila. I know you want to continue to grow that. I just think that type of entry point is so valuable, especially now in this hyper digital world of finding jobs and the pandemic, how we can continue to find those personal intersections that make the next generation feel valued, and also learning from them too. I know, Jeff, you and I talk sometimes about how we pivot in our industry, of how we learn, how we work. And that is the benefit of all generations that come together. That reminds me too of Jeff and I have talked about a project he's worked on with generational communities that are interfacing with one another, and how critical that is. Actually, Jeff, you gave me some reading material on that, and those communities that thrive the most have that intergenerational type of exchange. It's critical more than ever, I believe.
Absolutely. So, Jeff, what advice would you give that second-year college student?
I first of all would build off of what Amy and Lila, what you've said, that the relationships really are important, and the fact that this is an industry that is so accessible is such a phenomenal opportunity to build those relationships. But I'd say beyond that, hopefully Amy's story and mine are inspirational in that it shows virtually anybody can get to these places if they pursue what they're good at. And we talk on my team a lot about identifying your strengths and weaknesses. And that's actually not just what you're objectively good at, but the things that you're passionate about. Amy knows this. I have a daughter who's going through the college search process now, and the thing that she wants most is to be a part of a particular organization and industry that I've been able to talk to, and they say the exact same thing. It's not about going to a particular school, not about majoring in a particular major. It's about identifying what you're awesome at and what you love to do so much that it gets you out of bed every morning, and keep doing that. And when you become great at it, you find your way to wherever it is you need to be. And I guess that's what I would say to the students that you're talking about who are interested in this industry. Again, it's super helpful to have a network of helping hands who can help you figure those things out. But it also involves the work of just continuing to keep yourself focused on what is it that I love about whatever I'm doing and the role I'm in now, and how do I do more of it going forward.
Absolutely. Great advice. So I want to thank you again for your sponsorship. You now are both, your companies are inaugural sponsors of the forum, and grateful for the partnership. And there were students, Amy, I was so impressed by a handful of students that participated in this year's virtual forum. Of course, we had to go virtual this year, from the beginning to the end, which was 2.5 days. Not easy to do, but I've teased each of them that I'm taking their names and their bios and I'm sending them to people like Amy to say, these are the ones that went to class and participated and asked questions. I mean, they were really fully engaged. And in hindsight, I now realize virtual was comfortable for them, right? They're having to do it. It was the rest of us that were on pins and needles, I think. So thank you. Thank you for all that you do. So I wasn't going to announce it, but something you said, Amy, I want the two of you to be the first to hear. So the theme for the 2021 forum, which will be held October 27th through the 29th, hopefully live and in person in Orlando, is resilience. And the two of you are phenomenal stories of resilience. You personally, the companies, so appreciate everything you do for each of your organizations, appreciate your friendships, and most importantly, appreciate your willingness to be Floridians first. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for being on the show today. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you.
We'll see you soon.